This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, set me up on that. Someone will.
Okay, it's now 10 o'clock and I will call this town council workshop meeting to order. First thing we'll talk about is ordinance 220946, chapter 12, streets, beaches, and other public places.
Yes, sir. I'm going to jump in if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my goal with this workshop was to ensure that chapters 8, 9, and 12, who we hope to be on the next agenda, are right. We'd like them to go through and we'd like, for it to meet the needs of the council and our citizens. So my goal is to walk through the different ordinances in those one-page areas where we have some issues and just make sure that we're on a par. I did give directions to my staff. I told them, I want you to listen to what the citizens have said. I want you to listen to what the council said, and I want you to see if we can mix it into what the law says, because we wanted to follow the laws also. And that's what we have attempted to do. So again, chapter 12, we're basically just talking about sections 1221. So that's all I want to go through with you all. And we have to do it line by line just to make sure that it's, or paragraph by paragraph, however you want to do it. That was my plan. We'll just read the paragraph. We'll see what you think, and then we'll move on to the next one. And that way, come Monday, when we put this stuff through, it's right. And it's what the majority of the council wants. If that's okay, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm gonna start with, and I do have my department heads here for any of those hard questions that I can't answer. And so I appreciate you all coming for that. And so I'm gonna start with 1221, obstructions prohibited in town right of way. And A, it shall be unlawful for any person to place any obstruction upon or cause to be obstructed in any manner, and we're going to add the word on any street, sidewalk, plaza, or public way, or part thereof within the town, so as to render the passage of persons, vehicles, or other travel thereon difficult, inconvenient, dangerous, or impossible except as otherwise provided in this chapter. This section shall not apply to any employee of the town, county, or state while such employee is immediately and actively engaged in the maintenance, improvement, or construction of any street, sidewalk, plaza, or public right-of-way in the town. That is section A. Want to make sure that you all are good with that. We're going to add again the word on the second line. Okay, we're gonna,
Well, apparently you're adding right of way to the last line too.
yes. I'm sorry, you're right.
Okay. Go
Okay.
ahead. Proceed.
And what we've done is we've taken out section B and changed it to read, excuse me, nothing shall be placed in a clear zone defined as the first 10 street where it exists of the public street right of way above grade, except for items that exist for public purposes. And that's that part of the sentence, very important. Public purposes include, but are not limited to, street trees, sidewalks, drainage facilities, local, state, and federal signage, utility poles, and this is important too, legal public parking, mailboxes, and street furniture such as public trash cans.
Still, I have a problem with that.
Yes, sir.
Microphone.
My understanding is several years ago, this town lost a suit for this reason. They tried to tell somebody they couldn't have a fence in that 10-foot zone. I don't know the details. I just been told that it did happen. And that's still in effect today, so we can't have a 10-foot clear zone.
Now, the way I understand it, and John, if I'm wrong, you can come up, jump in, is the reason that the fence the issues went the way it went was because we were not addressing everybody in the town the same way. What this will do is we will address everybody in the town in the exact same way, which should alleviate that, sir.
Yeah, if I can jump in for a second.
Sure.
The purpose of redoing this section is very important, is because we will be treating everybody the same way. And we will rectify a situation like occurred several years ago with the fence that you're speaking of. The reason why that suit wouldn't move forward was because we weren't treating everybody the same. The person down the block who had an obstruction in the right of way for 10, 20 years, they weren't being enforced upon. And this person who was actively building a fence was being enforced upon. So when whatever council passes today or Tuesday, letters will go out to the entire town saying this is what the town council has passed, and X amount of days, within 90 days, you have to bring your property into compliance with this ordinance. And then after 90 days, then whoever's left gets a letter, and et cetera. But at least enforcement like that is across the board. And that's what our attorneys have told us, is that whatever you pass has to be enforced to every resident in town. Otherwise, it can be shot down for being selective enforcement. So this is, wherever we wind up, it will clear up situations like that.
Well, I have a whole list of reasons why I don't like this. I don't think there's anybody in town that would disagree that the town has a right of way. And that any time the town wants to put something in that right of way, they could do it.
Yes, sir.
But we're not doing anything in the right of way. We're just taking property that somebody is maintaining and telling them what they can do. And I understand a clear zone, but it doesn't need to be 10 feet. It can be 3 feet. How far off, John? How far off are your street or your ditches? They're about 3 to 4 feet off the street.
It depends on the road, really,
Well,
but some more, some less.
But it's not 10 feet. So my point is, you need a clear zone, so if somebody drives off the edge of the road for whatever reason, it's not going to tear their car up. But I don't see why you could not have something in your yard to keep people from parking in your yard. I mean, you're maintaining it, not the town. And I think 10 feet is excessive. When the town wants to use the property to bury power lines, put in sidewalks, put ditches, it's theirs. Everybody knows that. But to take and say, you can't have anything in a 10-foot zone, I just think that's excessive. I would much rather have a 3-foot zone that allows for low shrubs, flowers, sprinkler systems. You're not even addressing sprinkler systems. I can't.
That's
tell
below
you.
grade, so that would be approved in an encroachment permit.
Well, okay,
Mhm.
I'll give you that. Or other landscape, items that would not damage a vehicle, prevent a walker from stepping off the side of the road in that 3-foot clear area. Nothing can be placed that would damage a car, such as a fence, rocks larger than 3 inches, boulders, wooden ties, etc. I think you sent us a note, there was less than 400 properties involved.
But this particular, as it's written, it's about, 360 some odd properties
Okay.
would be affected.
So, and you don't really have a use for that 10-foot zone now. So why upset 400, 800 people in town over something that we might use 30 years from now?
Well, it's not a matter of use, sir. The clear zone is for emergencies. South Carolina, the number one cause of serious injury and road deaths is road departure. And so we try to maintain a clear zone. The Federal Highway Administration recommends on local roads anywhere from 7 to 10 feet of minimum of clear zone. And the higher the speed limit, as you get to highways and major arteries, it becomes a larger clear zone. So if council votes to change what I've recommended, that's their right. It's your roads. But I can only bring you what the practices, best practices, and standards throughout the country. If
But
council
my
wants to
understanding is
reduce
the
that.
town has put in trees and flower boxes
Mhm.
and other obstructions in the clear zone that you're talking about.
Yes.
So how's that different from the town being able to do it and the person being able to do it and on their property?
Well, I think, in a lot of respects,
Ask permission to speak, please.
I didn't think that applied in workshops. Mr. Mayor, may I
Oh, sure.
speak?
Yes.
I think we've got two things going on here, and in a lot of respects, I agree with Mr. Kinkin that I think 10 feet is a bit excessive. I understand a clear zone as it relates to, vehicles needing to veer off or pedestrians needing to step off the road if traffic's coming. I assume legal public parking means all of the parking in the right-of-ways that is granted by Chapter 9.
Yes, ma'am.
So, in many respects, if that's, in my opinion, is kind of contrary to what would be a clear zone, quote unquote, clear zone. But it needs to be that, or we change the definition of clear zone. But I agree that if we make that 3 or 5 feet and say that, that is truly a clear zone, we still have areas around town where they're parking in the right-of-ways and the right-of-ways are barely 5 or 7 feet, especially down in the R3 district. So you have no ability to veer off. We've got people complaining that, our police officers are being so mean because they ticket people because they're parking in the right-of-ways, but they're encroaching on the streets. So, we need to be looking at these areas of right-of-ways for that legal parking that says, here, this right-of-way, and I don't know what it is over on Yopon behind the fences of the houses. It might be 8 feet. I doubt it's 10 feet. But, those cars, they are right up against the road. And you cannot step off that road there. If you're a pedestrian, you're walking there and there's cars coming both ways, there's no place for you to go. So, I think as a clear zone, we need to start looking at, is the right of way wide enough to move a car such that we can maintain a real clear zone for pedestrians, for other vehicles, et cetera. And say, as I'm walking down here, a car's coming at me, there's a car coming the other way, I can step off the road. But if we've got a line of cars parked in the right-of-ways that we always have in the summertime, what do? I have to run up to get between the two cars that are parked there? So.
That's what they're doing, yes, ma'am.
So, the purpose, one of the primary purposes of the right-of-way is for safety purposes. So I don't know if the right number is 1 feet, 2 feet, 3 feet, 5 feet, but I think it needs to be something that we have a true clear zone that includes no vehicles, no fences, no bushes, no brick walls, no nothing. And then beyond that point, the low-level landscaping, the gravel, the pavers, whatever, the stuff that doesn't obstruct the right-of-way's view of oncoming traffic and so forth, that will not damage vehicles should they need to veer in an emergency case, then, that's okay. A lot of people don't want people parking in the right-of-ways by their houses. And unless you want to go through this whole town and say, too bad, they're going to park in front of your house, which I'm not a favor of at all. Don't get me wrong. I don't want them parking in front of my house either. But I think this way, it at least eliminates some of the really congested parking that, the right-of-ways have to be at least so wide to allow right-of-way parking. And if we keep this down to, as Mr. Kinkin said, let's call it a 3 feet true clear zone, then I think we could live with this the way it's written, changing the 10 to a 3.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I don't know if maybe Kenny or John or the administrator could answer this, but on the state roads within town, is the town responsible for the right of way or is the state? And if the state is, or if we are, how much do they claim it should be clear zone?
Yeah,
Do
the
we
state,
know?
the state supposedly does the maintenance, but they really don't. And they approve all encroachments on their right of way. They do not enforce any clear zone and local roads throughout town.
So we're actually responsible.
Yeah, they're supposed to get an encroachment permit from them and they review it on a case by case basis. That's what they do.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask if we've had any problems, this might be for Kenny and John both. If we had any problems here in town with the way it's been, or if we had anybody that's been run over by cars, that's been in our trees, that had to walk in the road, how big a problem have we had in town? If the way it is right now, not enforcing nothing, how big a problem do we have? I mean, are we trying to reinvent something that we don't even have a problem for to start with?
Well, if I may, I'll just bring up the situation that was brought up before with somebody building a fence in the right of way. So the situation was I was driving down the road approximately 8 or 9 years ago, and somebody was actively constructing a fence, putting posts in the ground about 3 feet from the road, maybe 2 from the road. And I said, sir, you can't build that there. And it turned into a refusal to comply, and the fence got built, and the person got certified letters that he has to take it down, and then it went to court. And we won the court case, but on appeal, the appeal judge said, well, you're not enforcing it evenly. The trial judge should have considered that. So he sent it back to our court to retry it, and then they declined to retry it. So it kind of just died. And that's why the fence is still there today. So as staff, we just want something that we can enforce. So whatever council approves is what will be enforced. If council doesn't want it enforced at all, that's what will happen. But when people start building fences in the right of ways, and the phone calls come that your neighbor's building a fence in the right of way, we're going to point back to this ordinance change, and we're going to say, well, this is what, we were directed to do. So we're trying to have some standards in place so we have equal enforcement throughout town. And that's the quandary that staff finds themselves in with a lot of different issues. Is, where it actually finally lies is fine, but it has to be something that we can apply even-handedly. Because the last thing we want to do is be accused of selective enforcement or, driving by and looking the other way for something that clearly shouldn't be there. So, whatever council decides after deliberating this is, going to be fine with me.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
if we don't do something and allow residents to protect their property, you're going to have an R3, every blade of grass that somebody could park on could be parked on. I've been riding up and down the road in the evening, and there was some lady who had a tirade because she couldn't park perpendicular on 7 North, which they'd evidently been doing, and now they have to park parallel. And then she was all upset about that. Third North the other night, it was parked on both sides. I can't remember on the south side, they were parked on both sides. They're in people's yards. Now, granted, it's a right of way, but I think if we approach 3 foot or 4 foot, it gives the homeowner something they can hang on and say, okay, I'm going to put something in 4 foot from the road, 3 foot, whatever, that's safe, so people can drive off, but they can't park in my yard. Because I've heard people that have lived in the R3 zone have talked about the trash that parkers leave and stuff that they leave in their yard. We don't want that. We want people, if a homeowner doesn't care that they park, they don't have to do anything. There's a 10-foot right of way that they could park in. But if they don't want somebody parking there, they should have an option to put in a restriction. And if you make it 4 foot, then you're going to get golf carts. You leave it at 3 foot, you're not going to get anything parking in the right of way. And that is up to the homeowner, not the town, to decide. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. Okay. We're looking forward to hearing this one.
Good morning, everyone. So just to answer Councilman Stamey's question, the only thing that really comes to mind that we've dealt with from the police department's point of view is we've seen incidents where residents have put certain things, I don't know, like a 4x4 post in their yard or solar lights or something in the right of way to prevent people from parking there. And then if by chance someone pulls in, tries to squeeze in there and bumps that thing or runs over that light or something, they want criminal charges pressed against the person and want us to conduct an investigation and find the hit and run and that type of thing, because striking a fixed object is what it is, and that is a code section. So, you know, to kind of go on what Director Adair was saying is, like, I don't think staff really has an opinion about how. We just need a clear rule so we know what to do and that it's fair, you know, to everyone. And, you know, to kind of respond to what you were saying, Councilman, is if you limit it to, say, 3 feet, that's not going to stop people from parking there. You're going to be forcing people to park 2 feet on the grass and 4 feet in the roadway. For example, at the hula show, which I'm sure you've all heard a little something about, you know, we had some really kind of egregious parking violations down there. And we had some cars that had 2 tires on the roadway. Minor, yes, but then a car in front of it had 2 feet of the car in the roadway. So the officers either write nothing or they write all of them. And if there's only 3 feet of right of way there, people are going to park in the roadway. And then if you have 3 feet on each side, you're going to have 2 to 3 feet of cars on both sides, and you're going to be down to 1 lane down the middle of the road. That's where you're going to start to run into some problems. So I know it's a tough one for you guys to make, and the residents feel a certain way about it. But to answer your question, that's the only thing that's popped up from the police department point of view, Councilman Stain.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Kenny, in light of some of the stuff you see in tickets and stuff you have to write, running stop signs, where they stopped, but you couldn't see them and they couldn't see you at an intersection for a bush or bushes or trees or whatever there may be in the way. I know right down beside my house at First Avenue and Pinewood, there's a bunch of pampas grasses all on there. I've seen people blow that stop sign, and the people coming down Pinewood have slam on brakes and just avoid a pretty good accident. But it's all growing right. You couldn't even park a golf cart on the side of the road. It's so close up along there. And it's all in the right of way.
And we've seen that, and, you know, Director Adair and I work together closely when we get something reported to us to pass it on to them. And I know they try to go out and work with the property owners to clear those line of sight issues. And I recently saw one, to your point, at Fifth Avenue North and Dogwood, and they reached out to Director Adair too, some kind of palms or something where all the way out and you can't see the cars.
And a lot of times they just need to be trimmed up a little bit, and sometimes they need to be completely removed.
Yes,
But I think the 3 feet and the rental district would never work, because people need a place to park. And the right of way is basically the ultimate place to park when people have extra cars, trailers, whatever they have that they got to park.
And we're seeing more of that as the town is working to increase its special events. The hula show, for example, at the Third North, there's some significant parking issues down there because we think we had about 400 people there Tuesday night. So we really had a lot of cars and got nowhere to go. So either you completely restrict parking in the R3 district, which, you know, has come up, and then, you know, you're going to have a sea of signs all up and down every right of way, up and down each and every avenue. It's going to be.
And then you're going to have the people that own the property, not the right of way. They don't own the right of way. They keep saying it's their property. It's not their property. And then you're going to have people putting signs up, and then you're going to be looking to enforce something that's not even theirs to enforce.
Right.
So you have no legal stance to enforce it.
Right. Agreed.
And, you know, that's a very touchy area, because I was at the hula show. It was a beautiful show. I told Rob they did a great job. Everything was great, fantastic. And then my phone starts going off, and I see the police passing tickets out. Oh God. And I mean, it was packed. It was packed everywhere. And yeah, they were parked in the road. I agree. I agree with you. But there's got to be some kind of way we can line those cars up. If we have to have y'all there to see that they're parking somewhat correctly, you know? So
we're working on that. We're working on that with Rob right now to try to figure out how to address it before next week's.
Yeah, I told him, I said, I showed him on my phone. I said, I can't believe this. But, you know,
Mr. Mayor.
we'll have events. If we're not going to do it and we're going to have crazy parking, then we don't need to have the events. Because that's not right for the people to come to an event and then we give them a ticket at the same time. So gotta have parking for 'em.
But, Mr. Mayor, I think the way this is written, provided we change the 10 feet to 3 feet, it then just allows the adjacent property owners to, quote, decorate the right-of-way out to within 3 feet of the road with some low-level landscaping. Some of the landscaping that has grown above the 3 feet, okay, whether we send out Public Works or we send out code enforcement, they just need to be notified that, this stuff needs to be trimmed back. But it still allows legal parking in those areas that there's nothing obstructing the right-of-way. So if there's nothing on, Yopon behind the fences, people are still going to park there. Now, that does not, in my opinion, call it a quote clear zone, but this does allow legal parking even within the clear zone. So I don't think the parking is so much a problem as people need to park off the road. If there's not enough room in the right of way for their vehicles, they shouldn't be parking there. And that's not our law. That's pretty much a state law, is it not? Yeah, you can't park on the road. So, if somebody's going to pull up and say, oh, well, here's a foot, I'm just gonna, park my car right here and 3/4 of it is in the road. Well, you're not gonna be allowed to park like that when you're at home. Why would you park like that here? So, that's just, laws are the laws. But I think if we allow this to be a 3-foot clear zone, like I said, with low level decoration out to 3 feet of the road edge, and I think that should be fairly enforceable. And I think if you would go out and reevaluate the 365 or whatever it was, probably most of those properties will come off the list. And I would venture to say at 3 feet, nobody's going to park there. Because I don't think they're going to drive up on your flower beds and run over your hostas and so forth, and unless they're particularly obnoxious people. But
Mr. Mayor, if it's not their property, why in the world would you want to put a fence up on a piece of property that's not yours? And why would you put up all these landscaping stuff? I don't, grass, I understand.
well, this wouldn't allow fences.
Well,
It's still, this, much like the original ordinance, this still does not allow any permanent structures, fences,
right, but if it's the right of way and somebody's gonna pull off and park, or somebody's gonna pull off the road, they gotta have a place to pull off.
Mr. Mayor. But if they even pull off the road, if Kenny forces the law and they leave tires on the road, which that's a law, you can't do it, then he goes and writes on a ticket, that's still fine with me. I mean, you're enforcing the law. As long as we ain't got 10 foot of clear zone to clear this whole road out, I'm pretty well in favor of a 3-foot clear zone. And then let Kenny and his staff do their job and write tickets. People will learn after a while that they ain't supposed to leave their tires on the road.
What if they, Mr. Mayor, what if they pull off the road and they run over somebody's flowers?
That are in the right of way?
Yeah.
It's not their flowers.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
well, but are they?
Then Kenny's gonna get a complaint from the homeowner. I'm mad. I want to first charge. They tore up my flowers. They tore up my shrubbery.
Mr. Mayor, I think you can see in the next paragraph, it says that the other issue with this is things placed in the right of way create a liability for the town,
Yes, they do.
because that is the town property. So if the town puts something there, we're accepting that liability. If a third party puts something there, we do not want to accept liability.
Yes, ma'am.
So in the second paragraph, it does say the town is not responsible to repair or replace any personal property placed in the right of ways if said property is damaged or removed during the course of our actions for maintenance or in the event of any emergency. Now, I don't know how that is addressed vis-a-vis parking, because if something happens to a vehicle while parked in the right of way, we should also not be held liable for it. So, you know, it depends on, is a car veering off of the street in the event of an emergency and runs over the petunias? Or is it a particularly obnoxious person and doesn't care, wants to park his damn truck over your petunias? Those are two different stories, in my opinion.
Yes. Well, I agree that I don't want to see a 10-foot clear zone. I agree on that. But I can live with the 3-foot around that. And people going to plant flowers or do a few things, but we got to give people a little variance. And so they want to make their yard look good. And I think that's fair.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
And I think these people that's putting rocks within a foot of the roadway, I think they should be moved. I personally think that you don't need them rocks a foot away from the highway, because that can have a cause to somebody that does swerve off the road a little bit. So I do agree, you need to remove them, but I just don't, back to the same question, same thing. I don't think we need 10 foot of it. I think we can live with the 3-foot clear zone. I think that'd be great for the town.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'll speak for the rental district because I live there. I'm telling you, if you make a 3-foot in the rental district, you're going to have a major, major problem because they have to have places to park. The entire rental district. I mean, there is nowhere through there. And everybody said, well, you got 6 bedrooms, you got 6 parking places. That's true. If you measure Kias or you measure something that people drive, you're going to get a Suburban, you're going to get 6 Suburbans, you're going to get 6 big trucks. I don't think you're going to get that under a house.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
But Michael, I think if you look at it, unless somebody places something there is in the way of their landscaping, the legal public parking in the right of way beyond the 3 feet,
It's still 10.
within the 3 feet or beyond the 3 feet is still allowed.
But if they go and plant something, if they decide, well, I want to now, I see this
Well-
flaw in this, and they decide they want to go out there and they want to plant in the right of way.
Well, that's the property owner doing that.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. We're saying to the property owner, it's okay to do it. But then we're saying in another word, oh, you can still park your car there. You can't have both. You can't have both.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to address that. It's if the property owner wants to not allow parking, it should be okay in this case. But if you're in the rental district and you want to give your rental people room to park, you're going to leave it open for them to park. And if you don't, then so be it.
You're missing the whole point of the right of way by giving that authority to the homeowner who doesn't even own the property. The town owns the property.
But we're saying that 3 feet of it is clear zone. And if you don't want people to park in front, you can plant stuff to try to discourage it. You can't stop it.
That's going to be a disaster. That's going to be a disaster.
Mr. Mayor. Michael's right. I see it all the time that in R3, you've got 4 vehicles, 2 of which can go under the house. 1 is in the driveway right up to the edge of the road. Sometimes back of it's in the road. And the 4th vehicle is parked in their yard or somebody else's yard. Now, I don't know how you prevent that. I've called the police on people parked on the sidewalk going on the boulevard, and they've come down and straightened that out. I've had contractors that are parked on the sidewalk, called them, and they've come down and made a move and made them unaware that it is a walkway and they can't block it. R3 is different, but if your driveway, say, comes off the boulevard and you're parking in and out from the boulevard and you've got a street beside you, you've got people parking the street beside you that aren't part of that house. They've come from somewhere else looking for a free place to park, and they're parking in that zone. those are the people that I want to, if the homeowner objects, and if he doesn't object, that's fine, they can still park there. But if he objects, and he has the right to object, I think, then he can put some shrubbery there that it keep the 3 foot clear and keep people from parking. Because he doesn't want to deal with the trash, the garbage, and the other things that happen on a regular basis. R3 is tough because that's where everybody wants to be. That's where they want to go somewhere and park, and they don't want to pay to park. And that's where they go. And I think the homeowner ought to have a little bit of, even though they may be a second homeowner or just totally a business, they should still have some right to protect their property.
Mr. Mayor, I think we're going to set Kenny up for 24-hour complaints is what we're fixing to do, because he's going to have to go out and write tickets on stuff because somebody's tires on the road or they're not on the road, or then he's going to be getting complaints from homeowners. I don't want them parked here. And then they're going to look at him and say, is this the right of way? Who owns it? Well, yeah, I don't know what the heck they're complaining about. Matter of fact, they scratched the side of my car. I want to know what they're going to pay for it. What happens in that, Kenny? The bush that they have planted in the right of way scratched my car. Who's liable? It's a gray area. Yeah, or the post that has their house number on it, or their glorious rocks. And Miss Purdy, don't get me wrong, but you're setting yourself up for suit. And if they're gonna come after the money bags, and that's us. It makes no sense.
Well, we've had a bunch of good arguments about this, but what's the answer?
Mr.
Go
Mayor,
ahead.
in my opinion, we're not significantly changing anything that doesn't already exist. So, we have already said in chapter 9 that people can park in the right of ways as long as it's parallel with the roadway and facing with the line of travel of the vehicles. So, that already exists, and that applies throughout the town. We've got to understand that we've all chosen to come live in a tourist area. Parking is a problem. It will continue to be a problem. It's going to be a bigger and bigger problem as we go on, with any luck at all, because that means our town is prospering. But I also understand that our residents and even our second homeowners that aren't residents take pride in their property, and that 10 feet in front of their property, 5 feet, 7 feet, 15 feet, whatever it is, along the sides and in the front of their property, they care for as their own. But they can't, we can't just say, that's ours, screw you. We have to come to some middle ground that says, yeah, we appreciate you beautifying our town and putting these things in place. It makes the town look better. That's why everybody wants to come here. That's why we look like a family-friendly beach, because we look like family homes. So I think just saying that, we have a 3-foot clear zone, at least that allows some level of emergency safety veering off the road. It allows pedestrians to step off the road, since we don't have sidewalks everywhere if, traffic's coming both ways. And they're not having to dodge and weave over, pilings, rock, boulders, fences, whatever. Well, they're still going to have to dodge over cars. So, the problem comes in, we allow legal public parking, which by state law says you can park in the right of ways as long as your tires are off the roadway. So if there's not 3 feet, or there's not, 6 feet for a vehicle to park in, 7 feet for a vehicle to park in, then, the vehicle shouldn't be parking there. He's going to have his tires on the street, so he's going to get a ticket. But we can't just tell all of our tourists, you can't come here because we don't have any more parking. We're gonna flood the town with signs that says no parking within the first 3 feet. I don't think that's the intent here. The intent here is to come to a compromise that says, yes, beautify our town, but if an emergency or a maintenance purpose, has to dig up your petunias, sorry, you'll have to replace them. But at the same time, encourage safety. We're not allowing obstructions, trees, over high landscaping. And quite frankly, that was in the ordinances already. It's just, we haven't enforced it across the board. We now got to take a step and do something that we can enforce. So in my opinion, I think we should allow a 3-foot clear zone and, also allow the legal public parking, because at this point, we can't do otherwise. Especially in the R3, like Michael's talking about, those right-of-ways are probably 5-6 feet at best. So yeah, you're going to get cars parked in those right-of-ways. A lot of those cars are the employees down in the E district. So, we have to have some place for people to park, especially in the E district. But I think this allows those discriminating homeowners that want to put something to discourage parking in front of their house, that latitude, by saying you can plant something or put something within 3 feet of the roadway. So in my opinion, if we just change 10 feet to 3 feet in paragraph B and in paragraph D, this should probably be enforceable for the police department and maintainable for public works.
Mr. Mayor, I would ask that Mr. Shanahan get with our attorney and find out who's going to be legally responsible in that right-of-way section of 10 feet or 3 feet, whatever we decide. When someone pulls over and they hit an object, I don't care what object, a tree or a bush somebody planted, or whatever, or a post they put up for whatever reason, other than a mailbox. Is the town liable, the homeowner liable, or both?
She's
Mr. Mayor.
actually, listen, can we
Is she on
shoot
there?
that even?
Our attorney's on the phone.
Is she on the phone?
But Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
The other 2 paragraphs clearly state the town is not responsible for the personal property placed in the right-of-ways, which includes the landscaping. Paragraph D goes on to state that in no instance shall an encroachment be granted for any permanent structures or fixtures, fences, trees, shrubs over 18 inches in height, signage, walls, or other items that are anchored to the ground structurally or too heavy or massive to be easily moved, and which may cause damage to a vehicle or an emergency situation.
But if you're not enforcing it.
One of the changes I think you might have to make is the things that encroachment permits may be granted for now would be low-level landscaping beyond a 3-foot clear zone, because previously I think it said just below grade. So you'd have to
Well, but this,
tighten that up.
yeah, this would say, at locations where the street right-of-way exceeds 3 feet from the edge of the roadway, encroachment permits may be granted for soft landscaping, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. So this clearly states if any permanent structures or excessively large or items that will cause damage in the event of an emergency or, engaging with a pedestrian or a vehicle cannot be placed there. So-
Okay, then they can't put the bushes, they can't put the
Correct,
high stuff, and they can't put the objects,
correct.
posts or whatever, or the little lights, or it's all this other stuff they want to put up, the ropes.
What they can put is soft landscaping not to exceed 18 inches in height may be planted beyond the clear zone.
Maybe planted,
Yes.
not put there like a, whatever object. That's my concern. because-
Soft landscaping
Yes,
is
okay,
allowed.
Okay, I'm cool.
Yeah, they say anything that can cause damage.
Because you're saying,
can't do
so
it.
we kept saying that 3 feet, and they could come out to the 3 feet And I just want to make sure that they shouldn't be bringing nothing out 3 feet.
So I have,
Low
Mr.
landscaping.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I disagree with that because if you don't have some restriction, then people are going to park in your yard. You've got 3 feet that you can move off the road if you need to, step off the road, et cetera. But beyond that 3 feet, if you want to put up a fence, hang up some reflectors, put up a string rope, whatever, it should be allowed because the purpose of it is to allow somebody to landscape their yard in such a manner as you don't have people parking in your yard. Now, if the owner doesn't care, then they can park in the yard. But if he cares and he wants to prevent somebody from parking in the yard, he should have that right. And flower bed is not going to keep somebody from driving in the yard. I just don't think it will.
Well, I mean, the right of way belongs to the town. And if you put a 3-foot thing on it, they're still in the right of way if they're over there. So when you're saying when they want to put a fence up at 3 feet, fence isn't low grade. I mean, if my car was going to come off of the road and I put a fence at 3 feet, I couldn't get my car off in front.
That's the point.
But if you have I wouldn't be pulling my car off to the side of the road in somebody's flower bed. So a flower bed or the 18 inches, I think is fine for the other.
The attorney
We gotta respond.
chimed in. Let's let her read what the attorney said.
Go ahead. Do you have a microphone for her?
I asked who's liable for damage done in the right of way. And she says, if the right of way is town owned, then it would be us. If it is just maintained by us, then the underlying property owner, but we will get pulled in anyway.
Yeah, which is why we have in the ordinance that says if a third party puts something in the right of way, we are not liable.
But you will get pulled in. You're the money bags.
Well, you have to be, you're the property owner.
But
But that's why this is written such that we don't want things that are going to cause damage should the entire right of way need to be used for something.
I agree. I agree with that. You don't need to put stuff there that's going to be an obstacle.
So the fact remains that in whatever the right of way is, cannot have anything in it that has the potential to cause damage to any vehicle or pedestrian that may end up needing to use the right of way in an emergency situation.
Correct.
Paul, you've been sort of quiet on this.
She's got another response.
She said the protection comes from the ordinance saying that nothing can be in the town's right of way. Like what Miss Keating was saying, that it goes on to say, if something's put there, then the town's not liable.
And they will sign something saying that, right, if they want to put stuff in the permit.
Yeah, every encroachment permit, it doesn't matter if it's your driveway you're putting in, the town's not responsible if it gets cracked or if the UPS truck drives over it and cracks it, the town's not responsible. So if somebody drives over your sprinkler head, the town's not responsible to replace it if it gets damaged. So any encroachment, the town is, it's at your own risk, basically.
Go ahead, Paul.
Well, I agree with the 3 foot, and I think giving the people the ability to, if they want, to decorate or something is good. So that's where I stand.
Mr. Mayor, I agree. 3 foot is a good compromise. We have to, I believe, do something about it in order to enforce it at all. And it can always be adjusted if people have a big problem with it or our visitors have a real problem with it. But I think in the rental district, the people that want to allow parking in the parking or the right of way, they're going to do it because it's to their benefit. So that's just my thoughts on it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I'll ask everybody this question again. how do you expect Kenny to enforce something? A homeowner in the, wherever, if this 3 feet thing, you say you're allowing for low stuff, but you're 4 to 3 feet. But I think some of you are mixing up the 3 feet and saying that you can put a fence up, or you can put a shrubbery or something. And Ms. Keating, I know you're not saying that, but I think you are saying that. Okay, he is saying that. So.
And that's not Kenny's enforcement. His enforcement is that car parked on the street or is it parked in the right of way?
But
If it's in the right of way, he doesn't care. But the homeowner should have the option of not allowing people to park in his grass.
the owner does not own the property.
The owner maintains the property. The town does not maintain it.
No.
So he should have some rights because he's maintaining it. And when the town wants to use that property, it's there. If he wants to put a ditch in it, it's there. If he wants to bury power lines, it's there. If he wants to put sidewalk, it's there. If he wants to widen the road, it's there. But until the town wants to use the property, why penalize the property owner who's maintaining that yard for the town?
If you do it up in the front part of the town and up in that part, I don't see where it'd be that bad of a problem doing that. But in the rental district, I think it will be a problem.
Well, it should be up to the property owner, not the town to say you can't keep people from parking in your yard. If the mayor can keep people from parking his yard, why can't the person, the second homeowner that's renting it, have certain say of what goes on in his
But he
yard?
can't. He legally can't.
Well, but let's focus on what this says.
I know what it says.
This says in the first 3 feet from the roadway, nothing can be planted, placed, anything else unless it's below grade. Sod, sprinkler systems, etc.
Right.
After 3 feet to the edge of the right of way, up to your property line, you can put low level, soft landscaping.
Right.
That does not create a significant liability for the town
No, it does.
as the property owner. So what is not allowed in the right of ways are things that have a potential for causing damage to vehicles or people, should the right of way need to be used for its purpose. So if you put, a boulder the size of Texas there, clearly if a car has to veer off, it's going to cause damage. You as a third party have created a liability for the town. If the car veers off and they happen to be at the exact spot where we put the beautification trees in the right of way and they hit the tree, we've accepted liability for placing that tree there. So it's our responsibility if that tree, they had to veer off in an emergency and cause damage. So the concept here is we don't want to allow third parties, our property owners, to create a situation that potentially would create liabilities. So if we leave from 3 feet to say the 10 feet or whatever the edge of the right of way is to be low level landscaping, that's all acceptable. If you want to put a fence, you want to put a brick wall, you want to put, concrete pillars, whatever you want to do, that has to be on your own property.
Exactly.
That's what this says.
That's what I'm trying to get across, Ms. Keating. And the attorney has already chimed in, and she said exactly what I said. We will be sued. If you put it in the right of way and it is damaged somebody's vehicle, we will get it. And how can he supposed to enforce something that is unenforceable? I have no idea. He can't do it. And then you're gonna be looking at Kenny when they pull up on the petunias. Like, what the hell's wrong with you? Destroyed my property. And it's not your property. Thank you. He's gonna drive off.
Okay, well, we've had plenty of discussion on this. What do we want to do?
Mr. Mayor, I made the recommendation. I don't think it's appropriate for polling, but I think we can ascertain that most of council is in agreement to allow the 3-foot clear zone with the exception of legal public parking and, the other federal signage, blah, blah, blahs. With the remainder of the right of way from the 3-foot to the edge of the property line to be low level, quote, 18 inches or less, soft landscaping.
I would like to see us grandfather in what's here. I have a neighbor up the street who's been here since 60. Her son's planted 2 cedar trees that I'm sure are in the right of way. And those trees mean an awful lot to her, but you're going to come in and tell her she's got to cut them down. I don't think that's right. I think you're taking 800 people and you're going to make them really mad when you take things that,
Where do you get 800?
well, if you have a property, there's usually 2 people own it. So if you got 400 properties, then you're talking about 800 people.
Well, we had 400 properties at 10 feet.
Well,
We
you're
probably have a
talking about-
handful at 3 feet.
You're talking about that they can't have it at 10 feet.
No, I'm not.
It's
Well,
already
yeah,
there.
no, but they weren't allowed to have it in the first place.
Well, no, this house was built before town was formed. But now you're gonna come in and tell her she's gotta take her trees down.
Right.
I just think that that we're actually encroaching on people's rights. I understand 3 feet. I don't understand just automatically saying, okay, everything that's in the city's right of way that we haven't enforced since we were formed, it's what, 74, hadn't enforced in 40 years. Now all of a sudden we're going to enforce it. I think some of that should be grandfathered, and I don't know how you do it, but I just feel like that there are things there. Well, across the street from me, there's a huge oak. Thank God it's there because there's a yellow house behind it. If that's in the 10 foot, so you'd have to cut that oak tree down. I don't want to see that. Those are the kind of things that when you say 10 feet, everything's got to be cut out. That's not right. There's too many things involved, and I just can't support the 10 foot.
Well, we've had this same conversation for years, and council's had it on a number of occasions, and it's always been passed over. So we need to make a decision whether we're going to act on it or what we're going to do.
I guess one of the questions is, again, public purposes include but are not limited to street trees. So I'm not sure we could identify those as street trees or what. I mean, those are things that we have to look at. And basically, based on this conversation,
what I was
staff
gonna
will
say.
make a recommendation. And at the next council meeting, of course, you'll.
If you took those trees, Mr. Mayor, but if you took those trees and looked at them individually, where they're located, are they causing an obstruction? Are they okay where they at?
Or do the trees belong to the town?
A lot
Yeah.
of those trees would be considered public trees
Yeah,
anyway.
even if somebody planted it, like the 2 cedar trees, if they're in the right of way, the town could take,
Yeah, ownership of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's how we handle it when people build new houses on vacant lots. And some of the trees are in the right of way. Some of them we require to stay, and some of them we say, if it interferes with your driveway or anything like that, then we'll remove them, we'll have them remove them.
Exactly.
But a tree that's been there for 40, 50 years in the right of way, I would consider that a street tree.
Yeah.
That can stay.
To remain.
If it's
But who's going to draw that line?
we'd have to look at it on a case by case
Everyone
basis.
has to
I mean, there's not,
But now you're not treating everyone equally again.
but to grandfather would make this ordinance unenforceable. I'm telling you right now, because a code enforcement officer is not going to know what's been there when the person says, oh, that's been there for 40 years and it was just there for 2 years.
Right.
How is he supposed to know that? So
And it's not
You
on their
couldn't-
property, it's in the right of way.
you'd have to consider the street trees, and everything else would have to follow the ordinance, in my opinion.
I'd be fine with that.
Mr. Mayor.
go ahead.
John, is it possible between now and Monday to come up with a new number instead of the 365? Or is that a significant effort to try to figure out how many
It's
properties
a
are
couple of days
involved?
worth of, I had 2 or 3 guys driving around town, marking
well-
maps. It'd be a few days before I put that together. But
Probably not
I
worth
would
it.
venture to say it would be a small fraction of what we had before.
Right, thank you.
But we're also waiting on this to get amended before we can move forward with some of the parking issues, right?
Well, if this is written as this is, then there are no changes to 9 for parking in the right of ways.
Agreed.
So then chapter 9 is only changed by the recommendations of the parking committee.
So the recommendation to John would be,
Change 10 feet to 3 feet. In the 2 places it appears in section 1221.
And again, we'll change based on what we heard today, and then council will have the opportunity to vote it up or down on Monday.
any final comments on this, Ms. Sam?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I've listened to everybody's argument pretty well. And I am in for the 3-foot clear zone. My problem is what we're going to do with the other 7 foot, whether we're going to go in there and make people clean trees off or what's been there for years and years. I have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with the 3 foot, but I do have a problem going in there and making people who has lived in this town and made the town what it is, telling them that they got to cut down a dogwood tree or something that's in our right of way. So I have a problem. I see where Mr. Kinkin's coming from, and I understand what this says. So I'm to the point where I think if we could compromise somewhere in there in between that of maybe grandfathering some of this stuff in that was already there. I just don't know exactly where I feel on that part of it. I'm fine with the 3 foot instead of the 10 foot.
Mr. Holder?
Like I said, I'm fine with the 3 foot, but I can't see going out here and asking people to cut down trees and do all that. And I'm not for that. Because we got a lot of trees in the town that are on the right of way. And we are going to clear the right of way all around town. So I don't think we got a problem here.
Well, I think John addressed that by evaluating the right-of-ways and what trees exist in the right-of-ways. If they're landmark trees, certainly the town supports maintaining as many trees as possible. We don't want to be cutting down trees unnecessarily. But I think it's up to Public Works and maybe in conjunction with a police officer or something to evaluate, is that tree causing a safety concern by its location, or whatever. But this is something that has been on the books that forever. This is not something new. The previous ordinance said, trees were never allowed in the right of way. So as far as homeowners planting a tree in the right of way, that was never allowed. That's not something new. So I think with the changes to the 3 foot, from the 10 foot to the 3 foot, and the balance of the language, continuing to allow parking and to designate low-level soft landscaping that doesn't pose a significant liability. I think from there, Public Works needs to take that 3 days and evaluate the town in how many properties are impacted to come into compliance with this ordinance, and what trees are in the right of way that will be our trees that we are willing to accept the liability that they may potentially cause. I think the other things that the homeowners are going to have to remove are things like fences and boulders and some of these overly grown bushes that should not have been there in the first place.
Mr. Cricklow.
It is a tough decision to make on this, and I don't know, grandfathering stuff in, yes, it's very hard to enforce, but I wonder if we couldn't have a system that allows people that have had stuff forever, since before it was a town or 10 years ago or whatever, or they just put it up a year ago, but they apply for a variance. And if it's not, I don't know how you decide though, that's the problem. But if you could go have a, I don't know, a board or something that makes the decisions, or even just a person, but it has to be kind of clear cut. If it's a certain size or whatever and has been there, they accept the liability for it and sign the variance. I don't know. That's just the suggestion, but I do agree with the 3 foot. And as far as the rest of the right of way, I don't think there's an easy answer except for we have to, the town has to accept whatever we want to accept as far as the trees go, and maybe make the rest be moved. That's bottom line, I guess.
Mr. Kinkin.
I certainly like the 3 foot better than the 10 foot. I feel like a homeowner should have some method that he could keep people from parking in their yard if they choose not to want people parking in the yard. I watched the house put in fresh sod, and as soon as Easter got here, people were parking in their yard again. So low level stuff is not going to keep people from doing it. And I think the homeowner should have that option. Even in the right of way that belongs to the town, to put up some sort of barrier 3 feet off the road yard. If they don't care, that's fine. But if they do care, they should have that option and not just have people pulling into the yard for no other than they just don't want to walk. They want to park as close to the beach as possible. I don't think it's a problem in R 1 and 2, but it is a big problem in 3. And I think all of us should have a right to decide who parks in our yard. And I'd like to allow some barriers beyond the 3 feet. Thank you.
Greg.
The 10 feet, the 3 feet, one way or the other, but the attorney made a comment today, and I think everybody is ignoring it. But she's doing her job. She's telling us what the law is and what the liability is. We have previous counsel that would say, whatever y'all want to do, I can defend you. But they're not doing the job. So I applaud her today for coming up with that. But the rental district has got to have places to park. Parking is going to be more of a problem every year down the road from here on out. And it's always been a problem. Kenny has a hard job to do enforcing the ordinances in this town. And when you say grandfather something in, if it's in the right of way, it doesn't belong to the homeowner to begin with. If it's a 200-year-old tree or a 50-year-old tree or a 2-year-old tree, John can make the determination it's in the right of way that if it's going to be there or not be there. If it's a structure that's going to cause a problem or accident or something like that, it needs to go. But if it doesn't, then it can stay. But as far as fences, boulders, rocks, trees, bushes, it needs to be out of the right of way. So, all I can do is use a little bit of common sense, and it may upset some people, but so be it. I mean, it's the way it goes. I mean, it's not your property. It belongs to the town, and it has to be cleared. It has to be open. Grass is one thing, but the other stuff, low vegetation is one thing, but don't get upset when he parks on your petunias. That's it.
Like I said, this is something that's come up many times and, I know a lot of people that have in the right of way, right on the property line on the edge of the street, have flower beds and stuff. But, the residents that I've spoken with say that they know it's in the right of way and that's, they're keeping their house nice. And they said that, if something happens and somebody, gets into an accident or has to pull off the side of the road and into their flower bed, they understand that. So I think that we made great process, today and going from 10 feet to 3 feet. But I'm not exactly sure if the 3 feet is where we need to be, and we're going to work that out and see what we can do, and we'll readdress it. But I thank everybody for their comments, and we'll have some public comments a little
Can I
later.
just add one more? Based on what Michael's saying, he's going back to 10 feet. He's saying everything in that 10 feet needs to come out.
No,
That is what you
I
said.
said the 10 feet is where it needs to be. But the thing I've said for John, if it's a tree or something that aspect, it needs to be looked at individually. If it's a tree or somebody put out bushes,
What about a fence?
fence, no, it's got to go
Why?
because it's not their property. It's not
What's the difference between a tree and a fence?
because
It's a restriction to keep
I
somebody from
agree.
parking on
But
the
it-
property.
but it is a live tree and we have trees we planted in the right of way also. So the tree, I can see that, but a fence, no. I mean, you're fencing in part of the property that belongs to the town.
The town's not using the property.
doesn't matter.
The town's not maintaining the
It
property.
doesn't matter.
It's there
It doesn't matter.
and they're maintaining it. It's their part of their looks. They should have some control over what their property looks like. And if we want to take 3 feet away from them, fine.
Mr. Adair.
If I may,
Go ahead.
I just want to clarify the fencing argument. There is already in the zoning ordinance, you can't build a fence outside your property, period. We're talking about little decorative fencing is what we're talking about. We're talking about like 2 foot, those little
With the
trellis
rope.
fencing. Yeah, or rope fencing. That's what we're
Yeah.
talking about. Regular
post.
fencing is already prohibited in the right of way through the zoning ordinance. Just so we're all clear.
Okay.
With a post. With a 4x4 post with a hole drilled in it? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's more of a decorative fence.
In the ground?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, can I make one more comment too?
All right, go ahead, Mr. Stamey.
The attorney a while ago said it would probably be drug into it even if we put the 10 foot or 3 foot, whatever. If somebody has an accident on that property, whether it's something there or not, the town would probably be liable for it too anyway, that we'd be drug into it. So it don't matter exactly if we have 3 foot or 10 foot, we still going to get involved in it. It's the town to pay money is the way I understood. She read it a while ago.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I think the point is anything placed within the 10 feet or whatever the right-of-way distance is a potential liability for the town. If the town goes around and says this tree, this tree, this tree, and this tree, because we are concerned about our stormwater process and, we know how much water these trees, do enhance the town and prohibit flooding. So if the town goes around and says, these trees that are within the 10 feet or within the right of way, let's call it that, within the right of way, we as the town accept liability for their existence. So should we get sued because somebody had an accident, they hit the tree? Yes, we would defend the town, etc. But what we cannot accept liability for is things that cause damage that other people place in the right of way. So it has always stated that permanent obstructions, including fencing, trees, have not been allowed in the right of ways. So all we're saying here is unless the town accepts the liability for the existence of trees in the right of way, that this only allows low-level landscaping that also complies with what the ordinance used to say as far as not obstructing line of sight. but it's a liability issue for fencing and other permanent structures placed in the right of way. Because the primary purpose of the right of way is for safety purposes.
Okay, so John, you're going to work out and do an assessment of the properties on the 3 feet? Okay. And Sherry, you're going to work on the changing in the ordinance from 10 feet to 3 feet? Okay. So I think we're done with that.
Okay.
Moving right along, we're going to go over to ordinance 220948, chapter 9,
Yes,
motor
sir.
vehicles and traffic.
Yeah, we're gonna kind of handle that the same way. In your package, you'll see you have an enabling ordinance, and then you have a copy of the ordinance. So I'm just gonna quickly go through them because I think most of this was approved, but just want to make sure. On page 1 of 2 of the enabling ordinance, it starts off with section 9.7, which is on page 2 of 16 of your ordinance itself. And it says no parking places shall be amended. And basically what it's on section 7 of 9.7, instead of having an any metered or metered space pay station area, we're going to change that to park to pay. Pay to park. Yes, thank you. On
Well, and I think the additional changes here was the confusion we had that we had to revalidate the approval in chapter 9, where we separated out, because we had a miscommunication. Do you recall what I'm talking about? Where what we thought we approved was right, but what we had in the red line was not correct. So a few of these also catch up with that we separated out rights of way from chapter set or from subparagraph 7 and created a separate subparagraph 8.
Yeah. And then in your ordinance, I'm going to page 3 of 16, subparagraph 8, we're changing it to stay upon any public right of way in violation of section 1221 and with the vehicle parked in any manner other than parallel with the roadway and facing with the proper flow of traffic unless otherwise authorized in a legal marked and designated area. And then in section 9.8, which is on the same page in your ordinance, we are adding 3 definitions. One is electronic payment, the other is electronic payment area, and the other is pay to park. And then in section 9.9, which starts on that same page, 316, the title paragraph of paragraph A shall be amended to read all pay to park areas. And then on page 4 of 16, paragraph D2, number 2, it will be Popular Drive to Hollywood Drive. And then you go D3.
Bill, just a question. Maybe this is for Kenny. Poplar Drive to Hollywood on Surfside Drive, it says vehicles with town issued decals can park in the right of way. But it goes on to say, but not obstruct the clear zone, which would now be 3 feet. Is that what we mean? Or are we just saying they can park in the right of way even if it encroaches on the clear zone?
Can you read that one more time? I don't have that.
Yeah, the whole thing would say vehicles with current town issued decals may park in the right of way, provided no vehicle shall obstruct the minimum clear zone identified in section 1221, which is now 3 feet.
And that would be Surfside Drive between Poplar and Hollywood.
Correct.
So that could put cars in the roadway on Surfside Drive.
There's sidewalks on there, aren't there?
I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know what the distance is between the sidewalk and the roadway, but I think you should take out that provided.
I wouldn't put that in there.
Right, that's what I thought. The provided statement needs to go. So it can still say vehicles with current town issued decals may park in the right of way. But that said, is it really limited to vehicles with the town decals? Because we say in 7, I think it was, they can park in the right of way as long as they're, with the flow of traffic parallel with the roadway. Is this paragraph even needed?
Gotcha.
I don't think so.
It seems to me it
didn't know
could
that
be
was-
deleted.
Yeah. I don't think that, I think if we take that out, you'll be okay on that.
Got it.
Yeah.
I don't
Why
know,
don't-
do you see any issue with that, John?
Yeah, you don't need a town decal park.
Yeah. I think that'll be
The
fine.
question came up about the parking that's on Surfside Drive where we were going to take the meter parking and make it pay to park.
Yes, sir.
It's my understanding that Lanier says that that's not part of their jurisdiction in order to issue tickets on that. So my question is, if we do change this, would it be the police department issuing?
The police department doesn't have access to pay to park and we
We
don't have
can-
parking officials. So you'll have to expand Lanier's contracts
Exactly,
to
that
cover
won't be
that, I
Correct.
believe. And
Yes.
Beg your pardon?
We
otherwise,
can do that. We can expand the,
Okay,
Where
well,
they can go.
it's just my understanding that they don't have the authority or have said that they're not doing Surfside Drive. So we need to make sure if we're adding that onto it, that we have some kind of parking enforcement on it.
yes, sir.
and we'll still handle other parking violations, but as far as pay to park, we don't have it. We have no access to their system. So we wouldn't be able to know if someone paid or
We can
not.
give it to you.
We'll go sit down now.
Okay.
But Chief, if you would, read the ordinance and make sure that deleting that paragraph is appropriate. Great, thanks.
And then C3 will be changed to say Hollywood Drive to Pinewood Drive. Parking in spaces on Surfside Drive between Hollywood Drive and Pinewood Drive are designated as a pay-to-park area using the electronic, identified electronic payment. And then going down to section 910, which is still on page 416, section 910, method of using failure to deposit U.S. currency, electronic payment, or pay at pay station. Add a new paragraph C as follows, and the new paragraph C will state the owner or operator of any vehicle upon entering the electronic payment area shall immediately register the vehicle with the electronic collection services and provided a valid credit card to be debited the necessary U.S. currency payment and follow the instructions of the electronic collection services. And then we have 911, which is still on page 4 of 16, and it's parking within marked spaces. Modify this section to read as follows. It shall be unlawful for any person operating any vehicle to stop, stand, or park that vehicle on any of the streets or areas designated as pay-to-park areas, except within the limits provided by this, or so provided by this chapter. Then we'll go into 916, which is on page 5 of 16. And it says section 916 decals and exemptions. This section shall be modified as follows. Paragraph A shall be amended as follows. And basically, where am I at? It'll say at the bottom of it, where it's the last word of the sentence is valid and the first word starts as such decals. It'll be changed to say such decals shall allow the vehicles to park free of charge at any pay-to-park area, whether collection means are by parking meter, pay station, or electronic payment. And then the sentence that follows that also starts with such decals shall be allowed on golf carts. We're just taking that sentence out. And then paragraph A4 shall be modified. It starts on page 5 of 16 and it finishes on page 6 of 16. Starts it. And it should say beach access parking, golf carts may park at the beach access crossover point when space is available. No golf cart may be a length or parked in a manner to block access or to access to or impede travel through the area. No golf cart may be parked or operated in any manner that may cause damage to the adjacent properties. All beach access parking is designated as a pay-to-park area using electronic payment. And then the next one is the first sentence in A6 shall be modified to read as follows. Upon approval of the town council, and this is the one that's titled Annual Guy Daniels Surf-Off Event. Upon approval of the town council, parking permits for free parking at a pay-to-park areas shall be issued to participants in the event. So it's you all will decide who gets the free parking, which is fair.
Yeah, the only change there is changing throughout this document. It said, metered parking lots or pay stations. Those are just being changed to say pay to park areas. It's a matter of definition.
Yes, ma'am.
Principle didn't change.
Amen. That's the truth. And the last thing on this thing is B on that same page, and it just says golf carts without town issued parking decals. Golf carts without town issued parking decals must pay the applicable fees while parked at the pay to park area. So that is chapter 9.
Anybody have any comments on this?
Looks good.
Okay, and the final one that we're looking at is chapter 8. And it starts on page 2 of 18. What we're talking about, it's section 821 fireworks. And again, what we've done is we've listened to you, we've listened to the citizens. I heard a horn going off. And we've also listened to what the state law, and we've come up with what we think is in there. And of course, it's up to y'all to tell us what you think. And I'll start with section 821 fireworks, A. Except as otherwise permitted in accordance with section 821B, it shall be unlawful to use, fire, shoot, or discharge fireworks within the town, except from sunset until 11 p.m., at which time fireworks may be discharged on the beach in the area between the mean high water mark eastward to the Atlantic Ocean. It shall be unlawful to discharge fireworks within 500 feet of the town fishing pier. So basically it's saying it's on the beach, it's sunset to 11 o'clock, the high water mark to the ocean. You cannot be within 500 feet of the pier. And this can be on any holiday or town event. This can be on the 4th of July, it can be on New Year's Eve. And so that's basically what that paragraph's saying. So, yeah, and I understand.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think, this paragraph well, let's start back up. The state law basically allows municipalities to apply reasonable restrictions to the discharge of fireworks. Fireworks in the state of South Carolina are legal. So it's inappropriate for a municipality to usurp the authority of the state. So what has been determined or identified is the ban on fireworks that we have currently in our ordinance is, unenforceable and, could create significant liability on the part of the town should we try to enforce it. So it's not in our best interest to have anything on the books that is illegal or unenforceable. That's just a waste of time. So what this does is it applies a quote reasonable restriction that says, basically with the density of our residential district and our commercial districts, we really don't want fireworks going off all the time, throughout the town. Most of us probably don't want them at all. But, with it being that we live in a state that legalized fireworks, we have to accept that they will be fired. So we've given some thought to, well, if we restrict it to the beach, that way we're not creating a fire hazard or, particular public safety hazard in the residential district. We leave it at the beach. And we restrict the hours from sundown to 11 p.m., I think it says, right?
Yes, ma'am.
We hope the state will interpret that as a quote reasonable restriction, such that should we enforce this and ticket somebody that's firing fireworks at their house or firing fireworks at the beach at 3 o'clock in the morning, that should that be challenged, it will be upheld. So, I've heard a lot of people saying that we need to prohibit them altogether. We can't have them in our town at all. But that's not practical. That's setting ourselves up for potential significant litigations that we will ultimately lose.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I went to North Myrtle Beach yesterday. As I entered town, there's a huge placard or an electronic sign that said fireworks are prohibited. The state law has not changed. What has changed is somebody's perception, and I'm not saying anybody here, but somebody somewhere has determined that maybe we can't do that. Myrtle Beach themselves still have on the books that possession of fireworks is illegal. I don't know how that would be enforceable, but it's on the books. It has not really been challenged yet. It's been somebody's preemptive decision that it may end up in litigation. I don't see what was wrong with our previous ordinance, and I just, I don't agree with allowing fireworks all year. I just don't.
Mr. Mayor.
And as far as the preempting a state law, we do that with smoking. Smoking's legal in the state, but yet Surfside Beach, a lot of other towns, it's illegal to smoke in bars or in public spaces. So I don't see why we can't do it.
Go ahead. That's,
Any other comment?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor,
it's unfounded.
I have to agree with Laverne wholeheartedly. I think that ought to say, except as otherwise permitted in accordance with section, it shall be unlawful to use, fire, shoot, or discharge fireworks within the town, period. Delete the rest of it. What I saw the law said that we couldn't prevent selling, we couldn't prevent storage, and we couldn't prevent manufacturing fireworks. That's state's authority. Since we've done it for years and other beaches are still doing it, we should be able to ban fireworks in our town. We're supposed to be autistic friendly. We have a lot of retired policemen, firemen, and military people here who could have PSD. And you got pets. Nobody speaks for the pets, but they're scared to death of fireworks. So unless somebody forces us to change this, I see no reason to change it. If we get sued and we lose, fine. But just because we think it might be a problem, let's wait and find out if it is a problem. We have a lot of fireworks as it is with the ban. And I think it's hard to enforce because you can't enforce it from the beach, because as soon as you see that cart coming toward you with the lights on, you quit firing fireworks and you go home. And as soon as he leaves, you come back and fire some more. That's what goes on. The only way you can enforce it is from the road. Somebody on the beach says they're firing down at the north end, and you drive down, you see them, and then you go in and you can enforce it. If you don't want to enforce it, I don't have a problem not enforcing it. But let's just not wholeheartedly say go fire fireworks, because unless you live close to the beach and in the north end and south end, we hear them all the time. And I did have 2 people tell me that fireworks are the reason some people don't come back. They've lost renters because of the noise. Lady that accosted me when I said, let's have it at the north end and allow it at the south end. She said, oh, I'm on the south end and I've lost 3 renters this year that couldn't stand the noise. You know, it's a family beach. Our grandkids go to bed at 9, 10 o'clock. We don't need fireworks at 11. So let's just stop it at not allowed within the town. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
the law is pretty clear on it, but I go back to what Kenny, our police chief, said last two council meetings ago. He said he's been instructed by council not to enforce it. So we're going to make a law. We're going to put it on the books. It's illegal, but yet Kenny's not going to enforce it. So what are we doing?
Jump in on that one. So, there's never been like a formal directive from
Right.
council, chief, don't enforce this. It's just been a lot of conversations over the years that, we don't want to alienate our visitors by writing tickets when they're here. Applies to parking tickets as well and other things that folks don't want to get fined while they're here. So that's just been an undertone that has existed.
Okay.
So that's why when we were put on notice from the previous town attorney, Bill and I were put on notice to make sure that we're aware of what the municipal association is saying, what the attorney general's opinion is, that we might want to look at retooling the fireworks ordinance.
Okay, but you weren't enforcing it because of just.
Well, we haven't been until we could get this, resolved, and there's.
So previous councils, previous times, we weren't enforcing it.
I would say that there's probably been very few single-digit tickets issued for fireworks, and as long as I can remember in the last 5 or 10 years, just because
It's gray.
It's difficult. It's gray. Yes,
It's gray.
that's a good way to put it. And we want to take care of our residents and their issues with visitors being aware and informed, what's legal, what's not, what's,
Most of the visitors in our town are on the beach side. They don't rent weekly up and beyond. So if we put it at the beach, whenever they're going to shoot them, because at least it's in a safer zone. It's in a area that can be, look, if you see something, you can get it up. Public Works beach sweeps every morning. So it looks nice. It's kind of a compromise that I think that the Attorney General would look at this and say, it meets the criteria, but I don't know for a fact it will meet the criteria. We need to run it by them and run it by our attorney. That's what we have an attorney for.
Right.
But I just want to give you something that when we vote on something and then we turn around and say, just don't give me a ticket. Kenny.
Does
Don't give
Jenny
me-
have an
Kenny.
opinion on this?
Can I
Yeah.
jump
That
in
don't
real
make
quick
sense.
though? Just so you know, this administrator's opinion is if you've got it on the books and you haven't voted on it, we are going to enforce our ordinances. If they are bad ordinances, then as Councilwoman Keaton says many times, we change the bad ordinances and make them good ordinances. But if it's on the books, we don't just ignore
Gonna
it.
give a test.
Sherry, did you say that there was some weigh-in from our town attorney?
The state attorney general has opined that local, sorry. The state attorney general has opined that local governments should not unreasonably prohibit the discharge of fireworks so as to have the effect of prohibiting an activity which the state has deemed legal. Such prohibition would exceed the local government's police power and render the ordinance invalid under state law.
Pretty simple.
And if I could just make a quick comment. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. You finish that.
You know, it's just doing my due diligence as your police chief and very interested in the liability that you may incur with some of this. You know, there's been about 6 versions of this we've gone through, and I heard what the citizens said. I heard from council members and tried to come, you know, everything's a middle ground, try to come somewhere to a point where we have a reasonable allowance in line with what the Attorney General said, and your insurer, the Municipal Association, who said you can restrict fireworks to time and place.
Right.
Should not completely prohibit them.
And you
You-
put it-
I will enforce whatever you pass, and I respect your decision-making on that. But I'm just concerned about a complete prohibition and how we can enforce that when we have the highest ranking attorney in the state of South Carolina making an opinion, not a law, but just an opinion.
Right, but
Yes.
the thing about it is you are taking the whole town and making it firework free, which is good in a way. It's going to please everybody, but it's going to put it on the beach, away from the people in the town. Now, you're still going to hear it. You're going to hear it from Ocean Lakes. You're going to hear it in Garden City. So
Mr. Mayor,
I agree.
Go ahead,
can
Mr.
can
Stanley.
we change the time on this? Could we make it a little less time? Say 10 o'clock at night or 9:30 or 10:30, something besides. As they were saying, kids go to bed at a certain time at night. Maybe we could restrict it down to, say, 10 o'clock at night.
That's
mean, that's
certainly an
something-
option. that-
There's some time, you know, you got that time in there from 7 to 11. Maybe we lower the time down just a little bit to take care of some of the noise after a period of at night time.
Well, as you know, we generally don't hear a lot of fireworks in the off season, but not a
Right.
lot. There are some, but not as bad as we do during the season. But it says sunset to 11. Sunset is typically 8:30. So you're given about 2.5 hours to discharge fireworks. You could certainly limit that down, however you want to fine tune it, as long as, and of course, I would rely heavily on the town attorney making an opinion on that. So we just tried to the 11 o'clock time was picked because it also aligns with our noise ordinance.
Right.
So it just, again, just trying to make sure that we could go either way as far as after 11 PM. It needs to be quiet in town,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
even for our visitors to
Right.
quiet down.
If I may.
Yes.
She also said, in my opinion, an outright prohibition would be struck down. Certainly, the time frame proposed could be altered, as the chief is stating.
And you could limit it to, you can limit it down. You could go back to saying it's only allowed on the 4th of July and New Year's Eve, but you're narrowing and narrowing and narrowing, and where you get into those areas of
Unreasonable.
Unreasonable.
Right,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
All right, Mr. Holder.
Okay,
He's been waiting a long time. He
Yes.
kept casting them up.
I agree with I know North Myrtle Beach does have an ordinance restricting them. And I don't want to see fireworks open up to every night. I think 4th of July and New Year's, those 2 things, that's it. And we'll have to see what happens. But I don't agree with this.
That's right.
Now, go ahead.
I would just like to add that our old ordinance did allow fireworks on the 4th of July. We could add New Year's Eve or whatever. And it's subjective, what is reasonable. And until it gets taken to a court of law, maybe that's reasonable, especially in a town like Mr. Kinkin said, we're autism friendly. How are fireworks ever autism friendly? So that's my point of view.
Mr. Mayor.
You're the last one. Go ahead.
Okay. I think, again, it is subjective and, no one can define reasonable. But at the same time, we all have to understand we chose to live in a tourist area. We chose to live in a state that has legalized fireworks. You don't want any fireworks at all, Move to Pennsylvania. They don't allow them. But at the same time, whether North Myrtle Beach or Georgetown or Horry County or anybody else wants to prohibit whatever they want to prohibit and violate state law, that's their liability to accept. I think we need to be able to understand that our town is 90% supported by our hospitality and accommodations tax, our visitors, our tourists, and of course the property owners. But we also need to be sensitive to people come here to vacation. They come here to celebrate. They come here to relax and do whatever. I feel it's a reasonable restriction to say it needs to be at the beach. I think it's also reasonable to say sunset to 11 because it does align with the noise ordinance. I mean, what's the difference of saying sundown can be up there screaming, yelling, hooting, hollering within whatever decibel level till 11, but say, I can't do the same thing down at the beach. Now, the other part of this that's not part of our ordinance, but it is part of the state law, is what constitutes fireworks. And, the big, huge mortar rounds and so forth, those are not considered fireworks. So the excessive loud fireworks that goes off, and maybe what you would hear in a professional display of fireworks is not authorized or not legalized by the state law for individuals to possess fireworks. So, I just think this is a reasonable compromise. It allows our police force to enforce a reasonable ordinance, and it also removes us from liability should any of that enforcement be challenged.
Mr. Mayor, follow up on Mr. Keating. She's talking about the mortars. They are anything sold retail in the state of South Carolina is a legal firework. If it's a retail establishment, they can only sell legal fireworks in the state, which the mortars are round mortars, 2-inch mortars, up to 3 5/8, almost 4, what they call a 4-inch mortar. It's not quite 4, but it's called a 4-inch mortar. Those are legal in South Carolina. Just information for everybody.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
first of all, the police department has enforced the fireworks in the past. I've had a son and a son-in-law been run off the beach because they were firing fireworks. So your guys have been on it, and they're very nice about it. They just came up and said, you're not allowed to fire fireworks here. Take it and go back. And that's what they did. They were very nice about it. They didn't offer to write a ticket. They just told them they couldn't do it, and they stopped. State law hadn't changed. It's been the same for years. And we've been able to not allow fireworks, just like we don't allow smoking on the beach. We don't allow drinking on the beach. Both legal in South Carolina, but they're not legal on our beach. And I see no difference between fireworks and smoking. If we can ban smoking on the beach, we can ban fireworks. And, if that's a problem, then we can shoot fireworks in R2 and R3. R1 and R2. We don't want that. We don't want them on the beach. But I'm just saying, I think we can do it. We've been doing it for years, and I'd like to continue. If somebody takes us to court and we lose, we lose. And then we can't ban it anymore. But the state is aware that the beaches are not allowing fireworks, and they've chose not to do anything about it, because this isn't the first year we've tried not to allow fireworks. We haven't allowed fireworks since I've lived here, or even before I lived here. So watch it, nothing's changed.
Everybody had a chance? I think that we have us being autism friendly, that we have a responsibility for the people that we invite here that are autistic to be able to protect them also. So I think that our restrictions on fireworks I think is reasonable to a certain extent, but I think that we also need to be cognizant of what we do. The ban on fireworks, that I think that we should, personally, I think that we should make it New Year's, Christmas Eve, or Christmas and the 4th of July. And make it only on those days. And, you know, the people that are autistic that are coming will know that on those dates that, you know, we have fireworks available. But to say it every night, you know, if I'm coming down to the rental district, I don't know whether it's going to happen at my house or next to my house or whatever. So, I mean, that's my opinion on it. We'll see what happens. We need to address it.
Mr. Mayor, one other comment. I think there is a mechanism, and actually I believe it was Ginny that brought it up the last time we spoke with her, that we may be able to appeal to the state to grant a special prohibited firework zone due to our autism-friendly designation. I'm not saying, you know, I don't know how long that'll take. I mean, you appeal to the state, it has to go through the legislature and so forth, so, you know, it may take forever. But, you know, there may be something we could do while temporary complying with state law to undertake that initiative to see if we can get special approval to prohibit fireworks within the town.
That's very good, Cindy.
Okay. Well, that, everybody's had a chance to talk on that, so we'll do it. Now it's time for public comments.
You got the other one.
Wait, 2 more changes. Wait, Ben.
We'll be right with you. All right, I'm sorry.
I apologize. There were 2 other changes in chapter 8 that are in your red line that I feel like I need to make sure that you folks are okay with. Get to it, sorry. In the
825.
825, thank you. 825, under the aggressive panhandling and soliciting prohibited, Councilman Drake brought to my attention a concern that he just wanted to clarify that soliciting would not be considered, or I'm sorry, canvassing for political purposes will not be considered soliciting. Just a clarification in there. So under number 3, 8-25, you'll see there's one red line just to address that concern that just says soliciting shall mean peddling, charitable soliciting, busking, and panhandling, but shall not include canvassing for political purposes. Just a little more. I know we addressed it in the handbills section 2, but then just in the event that an officer went to this, because the complaint that comes in with canvassing sometimes is a complaint of soliciting.
Right.
So an officer may go there to look. So I added that in as any objection to that. Okay.
The only other one was the buttocks.
Yep. So moving on to 862, indecent exposure.
Yes.
So Councilman Drake and I also had a conversation, and just he had inquired about some changes, but since this document passed first reading, I just wanted to make sure the council was aware of this. But it was just some concern that came up, and I think we had some discussion about it when we had the first workshop on 8, that we wanted to make sure that we were careful about bathing suits and that type of thing. You know, how much of someone's bottom should be showing.
Right.
You know, we had a complaint, I think it was last weekend, according to the captain, where a visitor called in, was very angry that they were on the beach with their family and there was some inappropriate bathing suits down there. So the beach services went down and spoke with them and got them into compliance, but we need a tool to be able to bring people into compliance. So in order just to make sure that to address any concerns that officers were just going to go down and blitzkrieg people with tickets for having inappropriate swimwear, I added in the red line that you see, or the red lettering. No person shall be charged under this section for the exposure of buttocks in swimwear unless he or she has received an oral or written warning to cease the unlawful conduct. So that left the enforcement tool in there, but then also gave a warning opportunity in there where our beat services personnel can address complaints from visitors or families that want to find that balance. And then our personnel can go down and get them into compliance before any enforcement action is taken. Okay? Thank you very much.
Does anybody have
I
any
have one
comments on
question
the?
for Kenny. I have one question for Kenny. On section 8/22, failure to aid police.
Yes, sir.
I'd asked about that one time before. Somebody, I mean, God forbid anybody would help the police. I mean, to the best of their ability. But if someone had a medical reason why they couldn't, and yet they could be subject to charges because they didn't. But then the incident happened in Texas this past couple of weeks, and the police were there, but they weren't doing nothing. And I couldn't understand what, man, they gonna get sued. I was thinking about that. And then I saw a report where the Supreme Court's ruled twice that they're not required to do anything. You can't be held liable if there was somebody coming in with a gun, you decided to run out and leave, they couldn't hold you responsible for that.
I haven't seen that. I don't know.
Yeah, I've got a picture of it, but I was just curious about that.
This is when requested, though.
When requested, but that's the same thing in them and being requested. So I'm just curious, is that something that you see as something that's?
This is standard language that you're going to find where citizens are expected to assist. It goes back to Sir Robert Peel, that the people are the police and the police are the people.
Right.
Where citizens have an obligation to assist their police department if they're able in a matter where they're requested to assist.
I think that's the secret, if they're able.
If they're
We're
able.
not going to punish somebody that's,
Well, the U.S.
Can't
Supreme
do
Court, the U.S. Supreme Court has made it clear that law enforcement agencies are not required to provide protection to the citizens who are forced to pay for the police and their service. What it says.
Well, I
So-
think the issue that, I don't want to get too far into this, but I think what they're talking about there is police cannot be required
Right.
to go run in and get shot. I will tell you that I will give my life in a moment for anyone in this room. But you cannot say if there is gunfire, you will go get shot.
No,
That's kind of what the Supreme Court is saying, is that police have an obligation to serve and protect,
Right.
but that they can't, you can't go so far down into the weeds on that to say that.
Well, I just want to make sure we're not going into the weeds with this. That's all I'm asking.
To address the first part that is valid, and the administrator just made a good point too. We could add a piece in there that shall be the duty of each and every citizen who is able to assist the chief of police or any police officer. Where this comes into play is unfortunately, society today, they see a police officer on the ground fighting to try to get someone in custody, they're more likely to pull out their cell phone and record it.
yeah.
And post it on social media than to jump in there and assist their police force in that situation. And I think that we've got to have a tool that if we say, hey, I need your assistance, I need your help, that citizens know that.
Well, I agree. Anybody would help to the ability they could help. I agree.
Right.
But I just wanted to make sure that something on our books that is not enforceable to the point of where somebody's given a ticket citation and it's, well, I couldn't help you if I wanted to help you,
Right.
So,
I'd be happy to have a conversation with the town attorney. She got an opinion on this? Okay.
She said we may want to look at this with the good.
Thank you.
We may want to look at this with the Good Samaritan law in South Carolina. The chief and I can look into that.
I'll work with her and I'll have this.
I just wanna make sure that
an
we got-
explanation before Monday night.
That's the only part I have.
Okay.
That'll work. Does anybody else have any
Chief, I
comments
have
on
one
the
question.
changes on this?
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Under section 849, trespass on property 850, posting advertising on property. Under C, all political campaign posters or signs posted on national, state, local elections for public office may be placed on private property and limited in size to 4 square feet. Now, in the past, you've enforced 10 feet from the road. If the clear zone is 3 feet, can we put it in from 3 to 10?
No. Zoning doesn't allow that. Code enforcement will pick up any signs that are in the right of way regardless of your clear zone.
Alright.
So that would be my interpretation, and Sabrina may be able to speak a little better for what code enforcement would be directed to do, but political signs should be on people's private property, according to the ordinance.
Because it's not your property.
Thank you, Kenny.
You're welcome.
Now we'll go to public comments. Good afternoon.
Beth Coleman, 10th Avenue North. I feel like I just spent 2 hours in the twilight zone. And I'm not trying to be rude, but you presenting things to the public as safety or clear zones. But what you're coming up with is not a clear zone, and it's not safety. Because if you're saying cars can be there, and I have no dog in this fight at all anymore, because I have nothing in my right of way. But I'll tell you what, if I have a party and I want people to park in my right of way, I think I should be able to do that because we mow it. The town doesn't touch it. And it's not bothering anybody. What I don't get is saying that trees and signs and poles and parking is not a safety hazard. It's a huge safety hazard. And you can't have it both ways. Either say what it is and just own it and go with it, or don't. But my biggest question, and a lot of my neighbors' biggest question, is how did these issues come up in the first place? How did all of a sudden we have a problem with the right-of-ways? All of a sudden we have a problem with fireworks, and like Vern was saying, the law hasn't been changed. And it's an opinion of the state attorney, an opinion. And I've called numerous beach towns up and down the Grand Strand. They're not changing their rules. They're still illegal. And if you're going to do it at the beach, I'm sorry, you should be able to do it at your house, in your house, everybody's house. Here we go back to Surfside. We're so worried and concerned about the people that live on the other side and how they're going to feel. But you said we should be concerned about the renters. So let's do that. Let's be concerned about the renters. I wouldn't, I lived there 13 years. I chose to live there. I get it. Raised my kids there. There were nights they were screaming, yell at me because they had to get up for school and it sounded like a war zone in the front yard. But we lived with it. It's okay. I'm not blaming the police for not doing anything because they did. I've seen them chase people. I get that it's hard to enforce things, but this town, they try to trump state law when it fits them. When it fits their narrative, they don't care about state law. When it comes to your employees, you don't. When it comes to the residents, you don't. So all I'm asking is you be fair. If you're going to let them blow up the beach in front of somebody's house, and I know I saw a few snickles about PTSD. Well, guess what? I have PTSD. It's not cool. You want it? I earned it. It's not a cool thing to have, and you have a lot to live with. So when they talk about people that have PTSD, and I see one or two of you, and I'm not even going to look at any of you because it's really upsetting. I don't want to pin anybody out on it. That's really disrespectful to do to a resident because it is real. So kids with autism, that's real. So let's be kind about that stuff. And at the same time, you can't tell me you're not going to be doing this selectively, this whole thing with the right-of-ways. You're going to be doing it selectively. And I'm sorry, like I said, maybe I should speak for the rental zone since I was there 13 years. Maybe I should be that person instead of somebody on council. I don't know. Because the second homeowners pay 80% of the taxes here and they get the least amount of voice. And the reason that there are so many cars at those rental homes, do you know why? Do you know why? I know why, because I was there and I saw it, and we had a rental home. Because when originally the town built those homes, they said for every bedroom you need a parking space. So if you built a 7-bedroom house, you had to have 7 car spaces. But then, I don't know who did it. It really doesn't matter now because it's done. Let's put a pool under the house. There goes 2 spots. Look the other way. Now they have 5 spots. And now the economy is tanking. And instead of renting to 1 family, you're renting to 4. and everybody drives a car. Little Johnny, little Jane, they come Wednesday, this one leaves Thursday. So the police have to get called because it's like a zoo down there. Houses that sleep 20, trust me, they're sleeping 40. They are. That should not be the concern of the resident of Surfside Beach. And you're taking money away from it. If you're going to rent, if the people are willing to rent to 4 families, guess what? That's 3 other houses that aren't going to get rented. But I do know that they're all rented this season because everybody's posting how they can't get a place. But still, if you're going to look at it, look at it. And I appreciate the fact that you looked up those things. But I still think selective enforcement in this town is wrong. And now you're talking about parking? We're going to give parking lessons to people? I'm sorry. Wrong. No, when they said, if you're going to have events, you're going to have to place for people to park. We need to show them where to park. No, 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 no. If you have a license, you should know where to park. And you know what? Park at Yopon. Park on Surfside Drive. Walk 3 blocks to the luau. I was mad when I saw that on social media. I was upset. You know what? When they do their job, they're wrong. When they don't do their job, they're wrong. You gotta be kidding me. I am not feeling sorry for anybody, including my family, that parks illegally and gets a ticket, whether it be from Lanier or whether it be from Kenny's guys. I'm just tired of all the hate about the police too. And then when I see some people that shouldn't be responding, you really should think about that. Not cool, not cool. Let's support our police officers. Let's be here for each other as a town and stop. Somebody please answer, why did these issues come up? And you asked a great question. Kenny, any problems in the right of ways? He answered you. So if we say, here's the problem, let's fix the problem, but you're presenting it without a problem. You want me to stop? Sherry's giving me the, so I'm out of here.
Are there any other public comments?
Good afternoon. Yvette Hellier, 7th Avenue North, Surfside Beach. On the right of ways, there was a lot of discussion about trees being in the right of way, not being in the right of way, close to the property lines and so on. One consideration I would really appreciate if you all looked at was using the canopy science, the tree canopy science and an arborist, like a Surfside Beach arborist, to help look at all these right of ways in the town's overall stormwater management plans. The stormwater management area is a good criteria from which to make determinations of whether or not to keep a tree or to get rid of a tree or to move a tree, replace a tree, etc. It will help with our CRS rating for improving stormwater management and control. It will help with flooding issues, and it's definitely a part of South Carolina's coastal resiliency plans. So I think that would be a really good option if the town would consider looking at the tree canopy science for that kind of decision making, rather than just whether or not a car can fit on that space and whether or not it's within the 3 feet, 7 feet, 10 feet area. It takes it to a broader view. The second comment I have is you all have a very hard job to do in trying to figure out the right-of-way issue in a fairness, because as everyone knows, one shoe does not fit everyone. Nonetheless, whatever decisions you do come to and where the ordinance is going to go, perhaps consider giving a period of time for people to get information about the tree ordinance changes, creating an allowance period where there's a lot of blitzes in social media and distribution of information throughout the town, letting people know this change has been made, who's affected by it, who needs to comply, what's the period of performance in which this will go into effect, and then 6 months down the line or 3 months, whatever you want to give it, that's when it becomes effective. So it's not tomorrow. It's in a period of time where people have an opportunity, especially for folks who are homeowners, but they don't reside as residents, full-time residents in town. It phases it in such a way to create an opportunity for people to get familiar and aware. And if you also in that fact sheet or Q&A document that maybe will help, you also provide a point of contact and a hotline number, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to have questions about their particular property. And it will help to have someone they can call directly in that period of time before it becomes effective. Thank you.
Judy Hanyon, 11th Avenue North. Throughout this entire ordeal, it appears that we have been searching for we have a solution in search of a problem. We live in a town that we all say is a family beach, that we all say we like to be here. And yet we continue to try to find and pick apart issues that may or may not be a problem for all. If it's about safety, why don't we evaluate where there are safety issues and address those issues? Why does it have to come to specifying whether it's 3 feet, 10 feet? We live in a town where we do have visitors because guess what? We are a tourist town. Guess what? We do have relatives that come to visit. And guess what else? We do have overbooked rental spaces. And we have previous councils that have eliminated parking. They chose 3 businesses that they eliminated parking for. Why do we pick and choose who enforces the law and who has to live by the rules? Or why do we change the rules for those we choose to? We have residents in the town who have by far spent lots of money on their lawns to make it look great. It was obviously approved. If not in writing, it was approved because no one ever disagreed with the fact that they landscaped to the road almost, that their irrigation system that they used to make the town more beautiful had to be protected because of unlawful drivers riding across it. Unlawful drivers meaning children on golf carts. We do have a good police department. Sometimes maybe what we need to do when we have our family beach activities, such as the hula show, it's not anything against what the police did that night, but would it have been maybe the thing to do, since it was the first night and we had a lot of out-of-town visitors, just to go to the mic and say, the Surfside Beach Police are here. And there are some of you that park too close to the intersection in violation of town regulations, because before I walked over to the hula show, I mentioned it to several people and they looked down, didn't see, in their defense, they did not see the circle with the P slash to corner. They didn't see that because it is faded. And when I pointed it out to several people, they did move their cars. So, I mean, would that have been an option? Who knows? Let's stop finding solutions before we really have a problem. Because in my view, that's what's happened here. We have one resident in the room who has had her front lawn landscaped and had to landscape it the way it is to protect her front lawn. Has it caused an accident in the 15 to 20 years it's been there? No. Has anyone been injured? No. Has there been a car that tried to park there that couldn't? Well, no. So where are we going with this and why? Maybe that's the question that needs to be answered. With fireworks, it's a part of this area. The law hasn't changed, so why mess with it? We still have issues with the explosions. Maybe, if we're not going to enforce it, then why are we talking about it? Because that seems to be where we're going to. You can't expect this man to have people on staff to run all over this town to find out who shot off a firework. Okay? That's impossible. I'm not going to call the police department on a non-emergency basis to say, I think somebody shot a firework in my backyard. That's not going to happen. So what are we trying to do here and what are we trying to accomplish? Can we set the big goals for our town? Because we do have some rather large goals here that we all have to achieve. Is one of them fireworks? I don't think so. Is one of them the right-of-way issue? It is whenever you can't see it across a highway. It is whenever you're driving on a golf cart and don't have a place to pull off, possibly. But there are still ways for you to do that. I mean, what are the real issues here? Why don't we answer that question before we go forward? Thank you, and thank you for what you do.
Is there anybody else?
Keep this short, I promise you. Tim Courtney for 15th Avenue South. I'm talking, Mr. Art. As far as the right of way, you know, it's been here for 18 years that I've been here. We've never had a problem. We've never been sued for it. We see it. I live on Poplar Drive. I don't live in the rental district. Yeah, it's a problem. You get people that come here, they come here for what Surfside was. They come here for the beauty. The residents here take care of their properties. Some of them put a lot of money. I put $12,000 into mine last year. And I'm in ordinance. I try to keep the intersection clear. Kenny's men had come and talked to me about it. Had a trailer there about 10 years ago. When I had my first back surgery, I couldn't move it. They moved it for me. I had no problem moving it. I make sure that intersection is clear, so there's a view. It is a four-way. You have people that just run stop signs here. We don't have the police, the manpower to enforce it. So the right of way, you got more people that put a lot of money into the right of way and make it beautiful. And I understand. I just had my street paved. Okay, coastal, I don't know which one it was. It wasn't coastal asphalt, but you know, they had to move some of my stuff. I had no problem with it. It was very easily moved. They did the job and I put it back. I took the responsibility of it. Driveway was cracked. It was fixed. Not a problem. For the right of way, I can understand when you got, you know, shrubbery or a fence, a fixed object of that nature, you know, but low stuff that a car can over. And if you got a vehicle that's 6 feet off the ground like these kids do, that's your problem that you can't get underneath the rental properties. The rental properties come with parking. All right. And what do? You see them with the big trailers parked on the right of way. They don't care because they got four, like Ms. Coleman said, there's multiple people renting out one house. That's how they're saving money. And most of them aren't spending money in town. They're bringing the food and they're cooking it right there. They're playing games right there and they're drinking right in the front of the house because they don't want to park there, so they park on the right of way. The whole idea was starting with the meters was getting revenue for the town. We start letting out of towners and these day trippers park. What are we doing? They're not parking in the parking spots. It's unfortunate, but the residents like myself, when my family goes down to the beach, we don't go that much. We went down last week. We had to take a paid parking spot. Back in the day, we were able to park on Ocean Boulevard. And it's just a golf cart. Did it look that horrible? No. Was it in the line of sight? Was it, you know, blocking any view? No. But now I'm taking up a parking spot where we could be making money. So we got cars that are parking in the right of way, so they're avoiding the parking lots. You guys created the E district. You went bigger and better. Maybe you might want to think about a parking garage. I know nobody wants to hear it, but that is a solution. That we do have it out. We do have a lockdown on Surfside Drive. Yeah, you brought us here. I didn't. You know, the pier was what it was. Now the pier is bigger and better. They're going to need more parking. So don't put it on the residents. I understand that's where we get our revenue from, but we also get it from people that live here as well and the businesses as well. You forgot about the businesses. The businesses bring in money too. And they have no say in anything. They get beat up and they end up leaving here. Now I'm going to move on to fireworks. I have children. I have one left in high school. I have to deal with, I live on Poplar Drive. I got here to Garden City. I can hear it all the way from Garden City from here. It's always been on the books here, you know, 4th of July, which is reasonable. But thereafter, I don't want to hear it all day. My kids need to go to bed. They got to get up. They get up early here in South Carolina to go to school. My kid's up at 6 a.m. catching that bus. So she's trying to do homework and you can hear her going off. We don't need this all day long, all night long, I mean. You know they're not going to light off fireworks during the day. They're only going to do it at night. That's when you can see them. And the other issue is cleaning up the beach. You ever been here? Have you ever gone down to the beach and look at fireworks at the end of the 4th of July? it's a lot of debris. You think our tourists want to see that too? You think they want their kids playing with no fireworks or explosive or gunpowder that's left in there? So with that being said, thank you very, very much. I appreciate it.
Harry Coleman, 10th Avenue North. I'm gonna have to eliminate a lot of my stuff because my wife stole my whole speech. Like she said, though, I have to reiterate this. Don't tell me it's a safety zone, please. Don't insult our intelligence. If you say it's a safety zone, you shouldn't allow anyone to park in it. I don't care if you have 3 feet, you're talking about 3 feet of free zone. The car's not gonna park 3 feet in from the street. They're gonna park right onto the street. Don't tell me it's a safety issue. And like my wife said, I don't know where you got this from. Where did this come up all of a sudden? You know, like every 6 years this comes up. Why? I'll tell you why no one ever does it, continues with it. Because I think most of the prior councils have realized it's a no-win situation. You're going to be committing political suicide. A lot of you won't be sitting there after the next election, if you do this. It doesn't make any sense. If it was a safety issue, fine, I'd go for it. No cars allowed to park. Now, that's rough. If you really mean safety, no cars are in the right of way. Because a little rope fence is not going to do anything compared to a car. You pull into a car, pedestrian there, you're gonna have some real damage. A little rope fence is gonna come down and really nothing's gonna happen. One of the council people asked what kind of safety issues came up. Whoa, what happened? Oh, Mr. Adair jumps up. I got one. Somebody was putting up a fence and I told him no. And he won. Where's the safety issue on that? The chief got up and said, well, somebody ran over someone's obstruction. I'm looking for like meat. I was ready for it. It's going to be 3 or 4 children were killed or injured very badly. It's a safety issue. Didn't happen. And then you come up with this, the lawyerese litigation. Someone's going to litigate. Has anyone sued us for someone else sticking something in the right of way? What about all those drainage ditches we had, which South Carolina is known for? Some of them going down 8 to 10 feet. If there was all this litigation and all this safety, why would they have these? Doesn't make any sense. Stop with the safety thing. It's crazy. Then you go, well, you know what? You can't plant flowers or you can't be shrubs. You can't have bushes in the right of way. You can't have palm trees. But like normal government, we can do it. We made up the rules, but we don't have to follow them. Do you see what you guys are doing? I counted. I didn't have a lot of time. I counted 40 flower boxes and palm trees in the right of way on Ocean Boulevard. Who do you think put them in there? The town did. Why did they do it? To prevent parking. And I agree with Mr. Kinkin. If you own the property, that right of way doesn't belong to you, but you're like the custodian of it. And if you don't want people to park in front of your house, on the side of your house, you should be able to stop it. Lived in a rental area, had rental houses. No people who came down here used to rent it out, and now they don't. They don't want people parking in their yards. Because they do a lot more than just throw garbage on your lawn. They use your bushes as bathrooms. you should be able to say yes or no, someone's gonna park on my yard. Because if you don't agree that, tell me which one of you. I got an old truck that I don't even use. I will gladly park that in front of your yard. See how you like it. Doesn't say 5 minutes on here, but we'll go with it.
Kathy Goddard, 320 15th Avenue South in Surfside Beach. I would just like to agree with someone else that brought up of the fireworks on the beach. I have seen it every year since 1989, and it's gotten worse and worse and worse for the 4th of July. And I agree, 4th of July, New Year's, fine. But you are not thinking of the debt incurred by this town. And I would really question how much we are in debt in this town right now. Are we going to raise taxes because we can't cover our butts? And you're spending more money than you're bringing in. That doesn't make sense in business. You can't do that. You have to, I thought you lived within your means, or at least you tried. This isn't an open, take everything from taxing the people to pay for what you're not watching, like the extra labor it's going to be to be on that beach with gunpowder, which is environmentally bad, the air quality, the debris, every day, 7 days a week. How many employees is it going to take? And how much use on our equipment? These are all things that need to be factored in. And I would question too, if any of you on town council have a fire, are associated with fireworks, or have family members that own fireworks, that you would gladly want fireworks 7 days a week. These are wrong. You have to watch out for we, the citizens that voted for you and put our faith in you. This sure wasn't the story when you came and campaigned to our homes. And it really upsets me. I'm one, I'll admit, I put rocks out there. Mayor Johnson and Mayor Hyman said, go ahead. They even told me where to go. 707, there used to be a rock landscaping business. We put a fortune in those rocks to bring them. If they're a problem, if they're that big of an issue, there's never been an issue since they've been placed on our property. Never once, nothing. But yet you pick the little issues and you forget about the trash in this town, the garbage dumps that you drive by every day that keep accumulating. You punish the people that are trying to make the town beautiful and more appeasing. To me, it's my personal opinion. You'll ride by all these dumps in this town that people don't care and they look like swallow, and yet you'll come to the people that really try to enhance the town and make the town a better place. And it's just annoying and it's aggravating. And I feel sometimes it's personal, quite honestly. My personal opinion, when I see cars on my road, parked down on the road yesterday, all day long, parked right in the road, and yet you're worried if an issue with plants and stuff in the right of way. It just doesn't add up to me. But, spend the money. go ahead that you don't have. But I wonder how much that's going to cost to try to take care of that every day. And I don't think anybody's even tried to figure that out. And these are the things that get us in trouble financially, to where we are in the deficit and we have problems paying, that we have to cut services and employees that give their all. And I just think it's wrong and it ought to be reconsidered.
Bye.
Thank you.
There any other public comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.